They mocked the weak kid, then discovered he was an unstoppable fighter. What if I told you that the quietest person in the room might be the most dangerous? The fluorescent lights of Crest Hill High flicker against the pale yellow walls as students flood the corridors like a rushing river. Backpacks slam against lockers, sneakers squeak against polished floors, and voices blend into a symphony of teenage chaos. But moving through this storm is a ghost, a 15-year-old boy who has mastered the art of invisibility. Eli Turner keeps his head down, his oversized glasses catching the harsh lighting as he navigates between clusters of laughing students. His frame appears almost breakable, narrow shoulders hunched forward, carrying a worn messenger bag that seems too heavy for someone so slight. His brown hair falls across his forehead like a curtain, creating a barrier between him and a world that has already decided he doesn't matter. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Watch him closely as he moves. Every step is calculated, every glance strategic. Eli has mapped every corner of this school, knows which hallways empty first, which bathroom stalls provide the best hiding spots during lunch. He's not just walking, he's surviving. The morning bell hasn't rung yet, but already the predators are circling. Near the trophy case, where golden soccer balls and championship photos gleam under spotlights, stands Ryan Mitchell, 6 feet of manufactured perfection. His sandy blonde hair catches the light just right. His varsity jacket fits like it was sewn by angels, and his smile could sell toothpaste to a nation. But those bright blue eyes, they're scanning the crowd like a hunter seeking prey. "Look who decided to show up!" Ryan's voice carries across the hallway, smooth as honey but sharp as broken glass. His friends, a pack of equally polished predators, turn their attention toward Eli like sharks sensing blood in the water. Eli's fingers tighten around his bag strap. He doesn't run. Running would only make it worse. Instead, he continues his careful navigation, hoping to reach his locker before... "Hey, Turner!" The voice booms across the corridor, and conversations pause. Heads turn. The hunting party has found their morning entertainment. But here's what nobody sees. As Eli's jaw clenches almost imperceptibly, there's something else. A stillness that settles over him like armor. His breathing doesn't quicken. His hands don't shake. Instead, he becomes even more quiet, more controlled, as if drawing power from some hidden well. "Pretending you can't hear me." Ryan pushes off from the trophy case, his entourage following like satellites orbiting a cruel sun. That's not very polite, is it? The hallway forms a natural coliseum around them. Students slow their pace, some pulling out phones, others whispering behind hands. Nobody intervenes. At Crest Hill High, watching is safer than acting. Eli stops walking. Not because he wants to, but because Ryan's friends have positioned themselves like chess pieces, blocking his path to the mathematics wing. He turns slowly, and for just a moment, his eyes meet Ryan's through his thick lenses. "There he is," Ryan grins, spreading his arms wide like a ringmaster. "Our resident ghost. You know, Turner, most people at least try to blend in. You just disappear." Laughter ripples through the crowd. Not the warm laughter of shared joy, but the cold variety that feeds on someone else's pain. Eli's expression doesn't change. He's learned that reactions are fuel, and he's not interested in feeding this fire. "Cat, got your tongue?" Ryan steps closer, and something predatory flickers behind his perfect smile. Or maybe you're just scared. E fez essa história te lembrar de algo que viveu? Compartilhe sua experiência nos comentários. Ela pode tocar o coração de alguém hoje. What Ryan doesn't know, what none of them know, is that Eli Turner isn't afraid. He's calculating. Every muscle in his body knows exactly how this confrontation could end. His hands, hidden in his jacket pockets, could move faster than Ryan's eyes could follow. His feet are positioned for perfect balance. His breathing is controlled, centered, ready. But Eli makes a choice, the same choice he makes every day. He says nothing. The silence stretches like a taut wire. Ryan's friends exchange glances, waiting for their leader's next move. The crowd grows restless, hungry for escalation. Some students film openly now, hoping to capture something viral, something that will make their Monday morning memorable. You know what I think? Ryan's voice drops to a whisper that somehow carries to every corner of the hallway. I think you're exactly what you look like. Weak. The word hangs in the air like a curse. Students hold their breath. Even the fluorescent lights seem to buzz louder in the sudden quiet. Eli blinks once, slowly, behind his glasses. His lips part slightly, as if he might finally speak. For a heartbeat, the entire hallway waits. Instead, he adjusts his bag strap and walks away. Not quickly, not frantically, with the same measured pace he uses to navigate everything else in his life. The crowd parts reluctantly, disappointed by the anticlimactic ending to their morning entertainment. Ryan's laughter follows him down the hall, rich, satisfied, victorious. That's what I thought, he calls out. Run along, Turner. Wouldn't want to be late for chess club or whatever it is you nerds do. More laughter, more phones recording. More students who will spend their lunch period sharing videos of Eli Turner's latest humiliation. But as Eli disappears around the corner toward his first period class, something flickers across his face. Just for an instant. It's not shame. It's not fear. It's patience, because what nobody at Crest Hill High understands is that Eli Turner isn't running from a fight. He's been preparing for one his entire life. Every morning, while Ryan Mitchell sleeps in his comfortable bed, Eli has been building something that goes far deeper than muscle and bone. He's been forging his soul into a weapon. Agora respire fundo e prepare-se para uma jornada que pode mudar sua forma de ver o mundo. The bell rings, and students scatter to their classes like leaves in the wind. Eli takes his seat in advanced mathematics, pulls out his notebook, and begins copying equations from the board. His handwriting is precise, controlled, each number and symbol placed with deliberate care. But underneath his calm exterior, something is stirring. Because while Ryan Mitchell thinks he knows exactly who Eli Turner is, he's about to discover that some ghosts carry more than just sorrow. Some carry the power to haunt the living. The old photograph sits on Eli's nightstand, like a prayer, faded at the edges, creased from years of careful handling. In it, a man with Eli's same gentle eyes holds a golden championship belt, his smile radiating the kind of confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are. Marcus Turner, three-time MMA champion, devoted father, and the man who taught his son that true strength never needs to announce itself. But Marcus Turner has been dead for 3 years. Eli's fingers trace the photograph's edge as rain patters against his bedroom window. The house feels too quiet, too empty, even with his grandfather Samuel moving around in the kitchen downstairs. This silence is different from the calculated quiet Eli maintains at school. This is the hollow echo of loss, the kind that never quite fades. The accident replays in his mind like a broken film reel. Marcus had been driving home from the gym where he trained young fighters, his truck loaded with equipment and dreams for his expanding program. The other driver, drunk, reckless, completely unaware that he was about to shatter a 12-year-old boy's world, ran the red light at 60 miles per hour. One moment, Eli had been waiting by the window for his father's headlights to sweep across the driveway. The next, 2 police officers stood on his front porch, their faces carrying the weight of news that would change everything. "Your father was a good man," one officer had said, his words floating in the air like smoke. A hero to a lot of people. But heroes, Eli learned that night, are just as mortal as everyone else. The months that followed blurred together like watercolors in rain. Social workers with kind eyes and clipboards, relatives appearing from distant cities, speaking in hushed tones about what's best for the boy. His mother had died when he was 8. Cancer, another thief in the night, leaving Marcus as his anchor to the world. Then Samuel Turner arrived. Eli's grandfather was nothing like his son. Where Marcus had been warm and expansive, Samuel was carved from granite and shadow. 72 years old, with silver hair cut military short and scars that told stories he never shared, Samuel Turner had spent 30 years in the army, including 2 tours in Vietnam and another in the Gulf War. "Pack light," Samuel had said on that first day, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd commanded soldiers in combat. "We're going home." Home turned out to be a weathered farmhouse 40 miles outside the city, surrounded by oak trees that seemed to whisper secrets to the wind. The house smelled of leather and old wood, filled with furniture that had witnessed decades of solitary living. Pictures of Samuel in uniform lined the mantelpiece, but there were no photographs of family, no traces of the gentleness that had defined Marcus. "Your father was soft," Samuel said on their second night together, setting a plate of simple food before his grandson. "Good-hearted but soft. Thought the world would be kind to him because he was kind to it." Eli pushed his food around his plate, anger and grief warring in his chest. He wasn't soft. He was strong. Strong. Samuel's grey eyes studied his grandson with the intensity of a general surveying a battlefield. "Boy, your father got himself killed because he believed in people's better nature, left you alone because he couldn't imagine someone else's darkness touching his light." The words hit like physical blows. Eli's hands clenched into fists, and for a moment something dangerous flickered in his eyes. The same fire that had once burned in his father. Samuel saw it immediately. "There," the old man said, pointing a calloused finger at his grandson. "That's what I'm talking about. That rage, that fury at the unfairness of it all. That's not weakness, boy. That's fuel." Over the following weeks, Samuel began to reveal the philosophy that had kept him alive through 3 wars and 40 years of military service. Strength, he explained, wasn't about being the loudest voice in the room or the most aggressive fighter in the ring. Real strength was about control, controlling your emotions, your reactions, your environment. "Your father fought for sport," Samuel said one evening as they sat on the porch, watching storm clouds gather on the horizon. Clean rules, referees, crowds cheering for the show. But the real world doesn't have referees, Eli. The real world has predators who smell weakness like blood in the water. "So what am I supposed to do?" Eli's voice cracked with the weight of 13 years and too much loss. "Hide forever?" Samuel's smile was sharp as winter wind. "No, boy. You're going to learn to be the storm they never see coming." That night, Eli learned about his grandfather's morning routine. 5 a.m. every day, regardless of weather or circumstance. Physical training, mental conditioning, tactical awareness, the same regimen that had kept Samuel alive in jungles and deserts where weakness meant death. "I'm not training you to fight," Samuel clarified as he showed Eli the converted barn behind the house, filled with equipment that looked more like torture devices than exercise machines. "I'm training you to survive. There's a difference." The first months were brutal. Eli's soft body, weakened by grief and inactivity, rebelled against the punishment Samuel imposed. Push-ups until his arms screamed, running until his lungs burned, martial arts forms repeated until they became as natural as breathing. But gradually, something began to change, not just in Eli's body, which was growing lean and strong beneath his oversized clothes. The change went deeper, into the places where his father's death had left ragged wounds. Each morning's training became a meditation, a ritual that transformed his pain into something sharper, more focused. "The bullies at your school," Samuel said during one of their evening talks, "they're predators. They hunt in packs, target the weak, feed on fear and submission. Your father would have wanted you to turn the other cheek, to find the good in their hearts." Samuel's voice hardened like cooling steel. "But your father isn't here to protect you anymore. I am, and I'm going to teach you something he never could, how to make predators afraid." Yet even as Eli's body transformed, he never lost the gentleness that had been his father's greatest gift. In quiet moments, when he thought Samuel wasn't watching, Eli would still touch his father's photograph, still whisper conversations to a man who could no longer answer. The contradiction lived in his chest, like twin heartbeats. His father's compassion and his grandfather's calculated fury, learning to coexist in a boy who was becoming something entirely new. At school, he remained invisible, allowing his classmates to see only what they expected, the quiet kid with thick glasses and second-hand clothes. But underneath his careful facade, Eli Turner was becoming a weapon wrapped in silk, a storm disguised as gentle rain. And as he lay in bed each night listening to the old house settle around him, Eli made a promise to the photograph on his nightstand. He would honor his father's memory, not by becoming Marcus Turner, but by surviving long enough to become the man his father had always believed he could be. But first, he would have to navigate a world that had already decided he didn't matter. The question was, what would happen when that world finally discovered just how wrong it had been? The alarm clock reads 4:47 a.m. when Eli's eyes snap open, no sound needed to wake him. His body has learned to recognize the exact moment when darkness begins its retreat, when the world still belongs to those disciplined enough to claim it. He rolls out of bed without disturbing the silence, his feet finding the cold hardwood floor with practiced quiet. Downstairs, Samuel is already moving through the kitchen like a ghost, brewing coffee so strong it could wake the dead. The old man's routine never varies. Black coffee, 2 pieces of toast, exactly 17 minutes of silence while he reads yesterday's newspaper. At his age, Samuel claims, there's no point in rushing toward tomorrow when today still has lessons to teach. Morning, soldier. Samuel's voice carries the gravel of someone who's been awake for hours, though Eli knows his grandfather rarely sleeps more than 4 hours at a stretch. Old habits from war zones where sleep could mean death. Eli nods, pulling on the worn training clothes that have become his second skin. Outside, the world exists in shades of grey and silver, caught in that liminal space between night and day where shadows hold more truth than light. The converted barn behind the house stands like a temple to transformation. Samuel built it himself after Eli's arrival, understanding that the boy would need something more than traditional comfort to survive what was coming. The space smells of leather, sweat, and the metallic tang of iron weights that have been lifted thousands of times. Today, we work on something new, Samuel announces, his breath visible in the cold morning air. You've mastered the basics. Now, we teach you to disappear. For the past 2 years, Eli's training has followed a relentless pattern. Strength conditioning that would break most adults. Flexibility work that borders on torture. Martial arts forms that blend multiple disciplines into something uniquely deadly. But today, Samuel introduces something different, the art of controlled invisibility. Watch, Samuel says, and suddenly the 72-year-old man seems to dissolve into shadow. Not literally, but his presence becomes so minimal, so perfectly controlled, that Eli's eyes struggle to track him even in the confined space. The greatest weapon, Samuel's voice seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, is the one your enemy never sees coming. You've spent 3 years learning to be strong, fast, precise. Now you learn to be nothing. The training that follows pushes Eli beyond anything he's experienced. Samuel teaches him to move without disturbing the air around him, to breathe so quietly that his heartbeat becomes the loudest sound in the room. They practice combinations that flow like water, strikes that appear and vanish before the mind can process them. Your father fought like a lion, Samuel explains during a brief rest, his own breathing barely elevated despite the intensity of their session. Powerful, obvious, magnificent, but lions are hunted, boy. You're going to learn to fight like a shadow. Eli's body responds to the challenge with an eagerness that surprises him. His muscles, sculpted by years of disciplined training, adapt to these new demands. His reflexes, honed by countless hours of repetition, become something approaching supernatural. Yet the most profound change happens in his mind. As dawn breaks fully across the sky, painting the barn in shades of gold and amber, Eli finds himself moving through combat forms with a fluidity that seems impossible. His body has learned to exist in the spaces between heartbeats, to strike from angles that don't appear to exist. Better, Samuel nods, approval rare as winter sunshine in his voice. Now show me what you'd do if someone grabbed you from behind. Eli doesn't think. His body simply responds. He melts out of Samuel's grip like smoke, pivots on his left foot, and counters with a strike that stops millimeters from his grandfather's throat. The entire sequence takes less than 2 seconds. Samuel's eyes glitter with something that might be pride. Again. This time, pretend I'm one of those boys at your school. The suggestion sends ice through Eli's veins. For a moment, he sees Ryan Mitchell's mocking smile, hears the laughter that follows him through Crest Hill High's corridors, his muscles tense, rage flashing through his carefully controlled facade. No, Samuel's voice cuts through the anger like a blade. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Emotion makes you visible, boy. Anger makes you predictable. Show me control. Eli breathes deeply, drawing on techniques his grandfather taught him for managing the storm that lives in his chest. He thinks of his father's photograph, of the gentle strength that had defined Marcus Turner. He thinks of the promise he made to survive, to become worthy of the love that had been stolen from him. When he moves again, it's with perfect calm. No anger, no fear, no wasted motion. Just pure, controlled technique that would end any confrontation before it truly began. That's my boy, Samuel says, and for a moment his granite expression softens. Your father would be proud. The words hit Eli harder than any physical blow. Throughout these years of training, he's wondered if he's betraying his father's memory by learning to be dangerous. Marcus Turner had been a fighter, yes, but also a teacher. A man who believed in solving problems with words and understanding rather than violence. He would worry, Eli says quietly, toweling sweat from his face. Dad always said fighting should be the last resort. Samuel's expression grows thoughtful. Your father was right. Fighting should be the last resort. But when that last resort comes, and it will, boy, it always does, you better be ready. As they clean up the training equipment, Samuel shares stories Eli has never heard before. Stories of Marcus as a young man, before fame and championship belts, when he was just a scared kid trying to find his place in a world that seemed determined to grind him down. He started fighting because he was bullied. Samuel reveals, hanging heavy bags with the care of someone who understands their true value. Bigger kids, older kids, kids who thought they could take whatever they wanted from him. Sound familiar? Eli stops what he's doing, turned to face his grandfather fully. But your father made a choice when he got strong enough to fight back. He chose to become a protector instead of a predator. That's what separated him from the animals who hunt the weak. The lesson settles into Eli's chest like a seed finding fertile ground. All this training, all this preparation, it's not about becoming like his tormentors. It's about becoming strong enough to make a different choice when the moment comes. As they walk back to the house, the morning sun now fully risen, Eli catches his reflection in the barn's windows. The boy who looks back at him is still slender, still quiet, still easily overlooked. But underneath the surface, something has fundamentally changed. He's become a weapon that doesn't look like a weapon, a storm that appears as calm weather. A fighter who has learned that the most dangerous combatants are the ones who never seem dangerous at all. At school, his classmates will see the same Eli Turner they've always seen, the quiet kid with thick glasses and second-hand clothes. They'll continue their games, their casual cruelties, their assumptions about weakness and strength. But they have no idea that every morning, while they sleep in comfortable beds, Eli Turner has been transforming himself into something they can't possibly imagine. The question is, what will happen when their games finally push him too far? Ryan Mitchell's world is built on a foundation of applause, and he's never known a day without it. The golden boy of Crest Hill High moves through his domain with the confidence of someone who has never questioned his place at the top of the food chain. At 17, he possesses the kind of effortless charisma that adults mistake for maturity and peers confuse with leadership. His smile has been photographed for 3 consecutive yearbooks, his name etched on trophies that gleam in the school's main hallway, his future already mapped out by college scouts who see dollar signs in his perfectly timed goals. But empires built on the worship of others require constant feeding, and Ryan Mitchell has developed an appetite for power that grows more demanding with each passing year. This morning, he stands before his bathroom mirror in the sprawling Mitchell mansion, preparing for another day of ruling his teenage kingdom. The reflection that stares back at him is everything American high school mythology promises: 6 feet of athletic perfection, sandy blonde hair that catches light like spun gold, and blue eyes that can shift from charming to predatory in the space of a heartbeat. Ryan, breakfast. His mother's voice drifts up from the kitchen below, sweet and accommodating as always. Victoria Mitchell has spent 17 years crafting her son's image, from perfectly orchestrated birthday parties to carefully selected private tutors to connections that ensure his success feels inevitable. The kitchen where Ryan appears is a monument to suburban perfection. Granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, and a breakfast spread that could feed a small army. His father, Richard Mitchell, sits at the head of the table, scrolling through his phone while sipping coffee from a mug that reads, "World's Greatest Dad," in fading letters. "Morning, champ." Richard barely looks up from his screen. As the owner of 3 successful car dealerships, he's learned that success is measured in numbers, and Ryan's numbers, goals scored, games won, scholarship offers received, justify any methods used to achieve them. "Don't forget about the team dinner tonight," Victoria adds, bustling around the kitchen with the energy of someone whose identity is entirely wrapped up in her son's achievements. "The Hendersons are driving down from State College to meet you. Their son plays for Penn State now." Ryan nods absently, his mind already focused on more immediate concerns. The team dinner is just another performance, another opportunity to charm adults who see him as their children's inspiration. But today, he has different prey in mind. The drive to school in his BMW, a gift for making varsity as a sophomore, takes him through the carefully manicured neighborhoods where Crest Hill High's elite students live. Past the country club where he's been a member since age 12, past the private tennis courts where he learned that winning isn't everything, it's the only thing that matters. Crest Hill High reveals itself like a movie set designed to showcase teenage hierarchy. The parking lot is divided into invisible territories, seniors near the main entrance, underclassmen relegated to the far corners, and Ryan's BMW claiming its customary spot beneath the oak tree that provides the perfect shade for his convertible's leather interior. His crew assembles around him like satellites orbiting a sun. There's Jake Morrison, built like a tank and equally subtle, whose father's construction company has rebuilt half the town. Madison Clark, whose perfect smile hides a calculating mind that can destroy reputations with surgical precision. Tyler Walsh, the class president whose political ambitions started in middle school and show no signs of slowing. These aren't just friends, they're accomplices in the daily theater of high school dominance. "Did you see Turner's little performance yesterday?" Madison's voice carries the honey-sweet poison that's made her the most feared gossip in school. "I swear he actually thought he could just walk away from you." Ryan's smile doesn't reach his eyes. "Oh, I saw it. Question is, what are we going to do about it?" The answer comes to him as they walk through the main entrance, past the trophy case where his achievements shine like golden promises of futures that lesser students can only dream about. Ryan Mitchell has never been content to simply win. He needs to make sure everyone else knows they've lost. Eli Turner represents something that offends Ryan on a fundamental level. Not just weakness, Ryan has encountered plenty of weak students and dismissed them without a second thought. No, Eli represents something more dangerous: indifference to the social order that Ryan has spent his entire high school career constructing. Most students at Cresthill High understand their place in the hierarchy. They compete for Ryan's attention, laugh at his jokes, defer to his opinions. They play the game even when they lose, because playing means they matter enough to be noticed. But Eli Turner refuses to play at all. He thinks he's better than us, Ryan explains to his crew as they claim their usual table in the cafeteria. Walks around like he's got some secret, like he knows something we don't. What Ryan doesn't understand, what his privileged upbringing has never allowed him to grasp, is that some secrets are born from pain, not arrogance. In his world, everything has been given freely, from his athletic abilities to his social status to his bright future. The idea that someone might possess something earned through suffering is foreign to his experience. Jake cracks his knuckles, a sound like breaking bones. Want me to have a conversation with him? Sometimes people need help understanding their place. No. Ryan's voice carries the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Too obvious. Turner's the type who'd probably go crying to the administration. We need to be smarter. Madison leans forward, her eyes bright with malicious intelligence. Public humiliation. Make it so obvious, so complete, that he'll never recover. Film it, share it, make sure everyone at Cresthill knows exactly what happens when you disrespect Ryan Mitchell. The plan takes shape over the following days like a storm gathering strength. Ryan orchestrates it with the same precision he brings to soccer strategy, understanding that the most devastating attacks come from unexpected angles. He begins by studying Eli's routines, learning his patterns with the focus of a predator, sizing up prey. Morning arrival time, lunch locations, after-school departure routes, every detail catalogued and analyzed. Ryan's teammates join the surveillance, treating it like a game that adds excitement to their otherwise privileged lives. He's got no friends. Tyler reports during one of their strategy sessions. Eats lunch alone, never talks to anyone, leaves immediately after final bell. It's like he's afraid of human contact. Ryan's smile grows wider. Isolation makes targets vulnerable, and vulnerability makes them entertaining. The psychological campaign begins subtly, books knocked from Eli's hands in crowded hallways. Seats taken just before he arrives in the cafeteria. Conversations that stop when he approaches, replaced by stares and whispered comments. Nothing actionable, nothing that could be reported, but constant enough to create an atmosphere of mounting pressure. But Ryan's masterpiece requires a stage, and he's been planning the perfect venue for weeks. The school gymnasium, filled with students during lunch period for an impromptu pep rally. Cameras everywhere, excitement building toward Friday night's championship game, and an audience hungry for entertainment. All that's needed is the right moment to spring the trap. Ryan Mitchell has never lost at anything that mattered to him, and he's not about to start with some nobody who thinks he can ignore the natural order of things. But what Ryan doesn't understand, what his comfortable life has never taught him, is that some people's silence isn't submission, sometimes it's preparation. And sometimes the prey you've been hunting turns out to be the predator you should have feared. Friday afternoon at Cresthill High carries an electric atmosphere that crackles through the corridors like lightning before a storm. The championship game looms just hours away, and the entire school vibrates with anticipation. Students wear jerseys, paint their faces in school colors, and buzz with the kind of collective excitement that transforms ordinary teenagers into a roaring tribal army. But for Eli Turner, Friday means survival is almost within reach. One more day, then the sanctuary of weekend solitude where he can decompress from the constant vigilance that school requires. He moves through the hallways with his usual careful navigation, unaware that today's route has been mapped by predators who've spent weeks studying his every movement. The gymnasium during lunch period has been transformed into an impromptu rally space. Bleachers packed with students, school spirit banners hanging from every available surface, and the cheerleading squad leading chants that echo off the walls like war drums. Principal Henderson encouraged the gathering, believing that school unity builds character and creates lasting memories. He has no idea he's about to witness a memory that will haunt Crest Hill High for years to come. Eli had planned to spend lunch in the library, but Mrs. Patterson locked the doors for a faculty meeting. The cafeteria buzzes with so much energy that finding a quiet corner seems impossible. Reluctantly, he makes his way toward the gymnasium, hoping to find an empty spot in the bleachers where he can eat his sandwich in relative peace. Ryan Mitchell sees him coming from across the room. The soccer captain has positioned himself perfectly, center stage beneath the basketball hoop, surrounded by his loyal crew and bathed in the golden light streaming through the high windows. He's been holding court for 20 minutes, regaling his audience with stories of previous championships and promises of tonight's inevitable victory. But his real performance is just beginning. "Look who decided to join the party," Ryan's voice cuts through the crowd noise with surgical precision. His tone sounds friendly, almost welcoming, but there's something underneath, a current of electricity that makes nearby students turn their heads. Eli freezes halfway up the bleacher steps. Every instinct Samuel taught him screams danger, but he's trapped in a funnel of students with nowhere to retreat. Below him, Ryan's smile widens like a shark scenting blood in the water. "Come on down here, Turner. Don't be shy." The words carry across the gymnasium with the authority of a royal command. Conversations pause. Phone cameras begin to rise like flowers turning towards sunlight. The crowd senses something building, and teenage bloodlust sharpens the air. Eli calculates his options with lightning speed. He could force his way back through the crowd, accepting the humiliation of obvious retreat. He could ignore Ryan completely, pretending not to hear over the noise, or he could descend into the arena and face whatever trap has been prepared for him. His grandfather's voice echoes in his memory. "Sometimes you have to walk into hell to find your way to heaven." Eli begins his descent. Each step down the bleachers feels like falling into a gladiatorial pit. Students part before him, some filming openly now, others whispering behind hands, all of them hungry for whatever spectacle Ryan Mitchell has orchestrated. The soccer captain waits at the bottom with his arms spread wide, a ringmaster welcoming his star performer. "There he is," Ryan announces to the assembled crowd. "Eli Turner, ladies and gentlemen, the ghost of Crest Hill High." Scattered laughter ripples through the audience, but it lacks the cruel enthusiasm Ryan usually commands. Something about Eli's calm descent, his steady breathing, his complete lack of visible fear, creates an undercurrent of uncertainty in the crowd. Ryan feels it too, and the sensation bothers him more than he cares to admit. "You know what I love about Turner?" Ryan continues, his voice projecting to every corner of the gymnasium. "He's so consistent. Every day, same routine. Head down, mouth shut, invisible as possible." Jake Morrison steps forward, flexing shoulders that could anchor a ship. "Maybe he's got nothing to say." "Oh, I think he's got plenty to say," Madison Clark adds, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "He's just too scared to say it. The psychological pressure builds like steam in a kettle." Ryan has orchestrated this moment perfectly. A public forum where retreat means total humiliation, but engagement means walking deeper into his trap. Eli stands in the center of the gymnasium floor, surrounded by a coliseum of his peers, and makes a choice that will change everything. He speaks. "Is there something you want from me, Ryan?" His voice is quiet, controlled, but it carries clearly through the sudden silence. Students lean forward, straining to hear. This is unprecedented. Eli Turner, the ghost, the invisible boy, actually engaging with the king of their social hierarchy. Ryan's eyes light up with triumph. The prey has finally taken the bait. "Want from you?" Ryan laughs, spreading his arms wider. "What could I possibly want from someone like you?" The insult hangs in the air like poison gas. Students hold their breath, waiting for Eli's reaction. Some expect tears. Others anticipate angry words. A few hope for something more dramatic. None of them expect what actually happens. Eli nods slowly, as if considering Ryan's question with genuine seriousness. You're right. I can't think of anything I have that you'd want. It's masterful verbal aikido, accepting the attack and redirecting its energy back toward the attacker. Ryan expected rage, fear, or desperate attempts at defense. Instead, Eli's calm agreement robs the insult of its power and makes Ryan look like he's bullying someone who poses no threat. The crowd shifts uncomfortably. This isn't the entertainment they were promised. Ryan feels control slipping through his fingers like sand. 3 years of careful image cultivation, and some nobody is making him look petty in front of the entire school. His jaw clenches, and something dangerous flickers behind his perfect blue eyes. You know what your problem is, Turner? Ryan steps closer, lowering his voice to a menacing whisper that somehow carries to every corner of the room. You think you're better than everyone else, walking around like you've got some big secret, like you're too good for the rest of us. Eli's expression doesn't change. I don't think I'm better than anyone. Bullshit. The profanity cracks across the gymnasium like a whip. Teachers aren't present. They're all in their meeting, trusting students to police themselves. You think you're special. You think being weird makes you interesting. The psychological assault continues for several more minutes, each attack designed to provoke a reaction that would justify the escalation Ryan has planned. But Eli remains perfectly calm, perfectly controlled, perfectly infuriating in his refusal to play the victim role Ryan has scripted for him. Finally, Ryan's carefully constructed facade begins to crack. You know what? I'm done talking. He shoves Eli hard in the chest, sending him stumbling backward several steps. Maybe this will get your attention. The gymnasium erupts. Students surge to their feet, phones recording from every angle. Someone screams, others cheer. The civilized veneer of high school social interaction shatters in an instant, revealing the primitive bloodlust that lurks beneath teenage sophistication. Eli recovers his balance with fluid grace that seems almost supernatural. For just a moment, as he straightens and faces Ryan again, something shifts in his posture, a subtle alignment that transforms him from victim to something else entirely. Ryan sees it and feels a flicker of unease, but he's committed now, and his reputation demands he follow through. What are you going to do about it, Turner? Ryan shoves him again, harder this time. Fight back? We all know you're too much of a coward. The third shove never connects. Eli's hand rises with casual elegance, catching Ryan's wrist in a grip that stops the attack cold. For a heartbeat, the two boys stand frozen in tableau, the Golden King of Crest Hill High and the Invisible Ghost, connected by a contact that changes everything. Ryan tries to pull his wrist free and discovers he can't. Eli's fingers feel like steel cables, completely immovable despite his slender appearance. Panic flickers across Ryan's face as he realizes he's misjudged something fundamental about his opponent. "Let go of me!" Ryan hisses, his voice carrying the first note of genuine fear. Eli's grip doesn't tighten, but it doesn't release either. His gray eyes, magnified by thick lenses, study Ryan with the detached curiosity of a scientist examining an interesting specimen. "You wanted my attention," Eli says quietly. "You have it." The words are spoken without malice, without anger, without any emotion at all. That's what makes them terrifying. Ryan throws a wild punch with his free hand, desperation overriding technique. And that's when the world discovers who Eli Turner really is. Time fractures into crystalline fragments as Ryan's fist cuts through the air toward Eli's face. In that suspended moment, 3 years of dawn training compress into pure instinct. Eli's body moves with the fluid precision of water, finding its course, not away from the attack but through it, around it, beyond it. His head tilts exactly 2 inches to the left, and Ryan's knuckles whisper past his cheek like a promise unfulfilled. The gymnasium holds its collective breath. What happens next unfolds in the space between heartbeats, faster than conscious thought, but slower than eternity. Eli's free hand rises in a movement so economical it appears effortless, his palm connecting with Ryan's shoulder in what looks like the gentlest touch imaginable. Ryan Mitchell, 6 feet of athletic perfection, 3-time All-State soccer champion, the untouchable golden boy of Crest Hill High, crumples to the gymnasium floor like a marionette with severed strings. The silence that follows is absolute. Not the quiet of concentration or the hush of anticipation, but the devastating silence that accompanies the collapse of everything everyone believed to be true. Eli stands over Ryan's fallen form, his breathing unchanged, his expression as calm as still water. Behind his thick glasses, his grey eyes reflect nothing, no triumph, no anger, no satisfaction. Just the profound stillness of someone who has finally stopped pretending to be powerless. "Jesus Christ," someone whispers from the bleachers, and the words hang in the air like a prayer to a God who has just revealed himself to be something entirely different than expected. Ryan struggles to his hands and knees, his perfect hair disheveled, his varsity jacket twisted around his torso. The fall didn't injure him. Eli's technique was too precise for that. But something more fundamental has been damaged. The aura of invincibility that has surrounded him since middle school lies shattered on the gymnasium floor. "What the hell?" Ryan begins, but his voice cracks on the words. Eli doesn't respond. He doesn't need to. The demonstration speaks louder than any verbal challenge ever could. Jake Morrison, loyal enforcer and Ryan's closest friend, charges forward with the subtlety of a freight train. His plan is simple: overwhelm this freak with brute force, restore the natural order through violence that makes sense. Jake has 40 pounds of muscle on Eli and the fighting experience of a dozen backyard brawls. It makes no difference. Eli moves like smoke given form. Jake's haymaker punch encounters empty air as Eli flows around the attack with movements that defy physics. A gentle pressure applied to Jake's wrist, a subtle shift of weight, and suddenly the hulking boy is airborne, spinning through space before landing hard against the gymnasium wall. The crash echoes through the building like thunder. Madison Clark screams, not from fear, but from the cognitive dissonance of watching her carefully ordered world collapse in real time. Tyler Walsh fumbles for his phone, trying to process what he's witnessing through the lens of social media virality. But Eli isn't finished. Ryan staggers to his feet, his face flushed with humiliation and rage. Everything he's built, every carefully cultivated relationship, every assumption about power and weakness, all of it crumbles with each passing second. His mind rejects what his eyes have seen, clinging to the familiar narrative where he remains the hero of his own story. "You got lucky," Ryan snarls, though the words sound hollow even to his own ears. Both times. He rushes forward again, abandoning technique for desperate fury. This time, he'll use his size advantage, his athletic training, his sheer determination to reclaim what's rightfully his. Eli's response is a masterpiece of controlled violence. The sequence unfolds like a deadly dance, choreographed by someone who understands that true artistry lies in making the impossible appear effortless. Ryan's charge becomes a stumble as Eli's foot sweeps his ankle. Ryan's attempt to grapple becomes a gentle redirection that sends him spinning past his target. Ryan's final desperate swing becomes an opportunity for Eli to demonstrate the difference between someone who learned to fight for sport and someone who learned to fight for survival. The takedown is beautiful in its simplicity. One moment, Ryan is throwing his full weight into an attack that should flatten any normal teenager. The next, he's suspended in midair, held aloft by leverage points that turn his own momentum against him. Eli controls his descent like a conductor managing an orchestra, bringing Ryan to the ground with enough force to end the confrontation, but not enough to cause lasting damage. Ryan lies on his back, staring at the gymnasium ceiling, trying to understand how his universe has been so completely inverted. Above him, Eli Turner, the ghost, the invisible boy, the target of 3 years of casual cruelty, stands as still as a monument to powers no one had imagined. The crowd finally finds its voice, but the sound isn't the roar of approval that usually greets athletic displays at Cresthill High. It's something rawer, more primal, the stunned murmur of witnesses to a miracle they don't understand. Phones capture every angle, every expression, every impossible moment. Within minutes, the footage will spread beyond the gymnasium walls, beyond the school, beyond the boundaries of their small town. The world will see Ryan Mitchell's humiliation and Eli Turner's revelation, and nothing will ever be the same. But in this moment, suspended between the before and after, Eli makes one final choice that defines everything that follows. He extends his hand toward Ryan, not in mockery or false charity, but with the same quiet grace he's shown throughout the confrontation. His grey eyes, still magnified by thick lenses, hold no hatred, no triumph, no desire for further violence, just the profound sadness of someone who understands that causing pain, even justified pain, carries its own weight. This doesn't have to continue, Eli says, his voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. Ryan stares at the offered hand as if it might transform into a serpent. Everything in his privileged upbringing rebels against accepting help from someone he's spent years trying to diminish. But something in Eli's expression, the complete absence of malice, the genuine offer of redemption, cracks the armor of arrogance that has protected Ryan's ego for so long. For a moment, it seems possible that this confrontation might end in understanding rather than conquest, that Ryan Mitchell might choose growth over vengeance, wisdom over wounded pride. Instead, he slaps Eli's hand away with vicious contempt. "Stay away from me, freak," Ryan hisses, scrambling to his feet with whatever dignity he can salvage. "This isn't over." The threat rings hollow in the gymnasium air. Everyone present has seen the truth now, has witnessed the vast gulf between Ryan's perception of his own power and the reality of what true strength looks like. Eli simply nods, accepting Ryan's choice with the same calm he's shown throughout the encounter. He adjusts his glasses, picks up his dropped backpack, and begins walking toward the exit as if nothing extraordinary has happened, but everything has changed. As Eli disappears through the gymnasium doors, the crowd erupts into chaos. Students rush to check on Ryan and Jake. Others replay the footage on their phones. Still others debate what they've witnessed with the passion of theologians discovering new scripture. Principal Henderson arrives moments later, drawn by reports of a disturbance, only to find a gymnasium full of teenagers buzzing with an energy he doesn't understand. The official story, Ryan slipped during an impromptu demonstration, satisfies the adults who weren't present to witness the truth. But the students know what they saw. And in the age of viral videos and instant communication, secrets have a way of refusing to stay buried. By the final bell, every student at Cresthill High has seen the footage. By evening, it's spreading through social media like wildfire. By midnight, the world knows that somewhere in a small town, a quiet boy has just redefined everything they thought they understood about strength, weakness, and the true meaning of power. The question is, what happens when legends are born from 30 seconds of violence that wasn't really violence at all? Tyler Walsh uploads it first, his finger hovering over the share button for 3 hours as he debates whether releasing the footage will enhance or destroy his own social standing. The title he chooses, "Holy Sht, Quiet Kid Destroys School Bully," captures the raw shock that still reverberates through his 17-year-old mind. Within minutes, the upload spreads through Cresthill High's digital ecosystem like wildfire through dry timber. Group chats explode with reaction GIFs and disbelief emojis. Instagram stories multiply exponentially. TikTok duets and reaction videos spawn faster than anyone can count. The algorithm gods smile upon this perfect storm of teenage drama, and their blessing carries the video far beyond the boundaries of one small town. By dawn, Eli Turner is trending. But Eli himself remains blissfully unaware of his viral fame as he moves through his Saturday morning routine. The alarm at 4:47 a.m., the quiet descent to the kitchen where Samuel waits with coffee strong enough to wake the dead, the walk to the converted barn where transformation happens in the space between darkness and light. "You seem different today," Samuel observes as they begin their warm-up routine. His grandfather's eyes, sharpened by decades of reading men's souls in combat zones, detect subtle changes that most people would miss entirely. Eli pauses mid-stretch, considering the observation. Something has shifted inside him since yesterday's confrontation. Not pride, exactly, but a settling of internal tensions that have been pulling at him for years. The secret he's carried, the careful balance between his true capabilities and his public persona, has finally been revealed. The weight of that deception no longer presses against his shoulders. "I stopped hiding yesterday," Eli says simply. Samuel nods with the satisfaction of a teacher whose most important lesson has finally been absorbed. And how does that feel? Lighter, but also more complicated. Their training session that morning carries a different energy. Where previous workouts focused on building and concealing power, today's routine feels like a celebration of abilities no longer hidden. Eli moves with newfound freedom, his techniques flowing like water released from a dam. "What you did yesterday," Samuel says during a brief rest, "choosing not to hurt that boy when you could have ended him. That's the difference between your father and me. I would have put him in the hospital." The admission hangs between them like smoke from an old battlefield. Samuel has never spoken directly about the darkness that military service carved into his soul, the places where mercy became a luxury he couldn't afford. "Does that make me weak?" Eli asks. "No, boy. It makes you strong enough to choose. That's a power very few people ever develop." Their conversation is interrupted by the sound of Samuel's ancient landline ringing from the house. The old man frowns. His phone rarely rings, and never this early on weekends. The voice on the other end belongs to Principal Henderson, and even from across the barn, Eli can hear the stress crackling through the connection. "We need to talk," Samuel says when he returns, his expression unreadable. "It seems your moment of truth has had some consequences." The drive to Crest Hill High feels surreal in the weekend silence. Empty parking lots, darkened windows, none of the teenage energy that usually fills these spaces. Principal Henderson meets them at the main entrance, his face wearing the exhausted expression of someone who spent the night managing a crisis he doesn't fully understand. "Mr. Turner," Eli. Henderson nods to them both with the careful politeness of someone walking through a minefield. "Thank you for coming in on short notice." His office smells of coffee and stress sweat. The desk overflows with printed emails, phone messages, and what appears to be screenshots from social media platforms. Henderson gestures for them to sit, then collapses into his own chair like a man who's aged 5 years overnight. "I'm going to be direct." He begins, his voice carrying the weight of administrative exhaustion. "There's a video circulating that shows yesterday's incident in the gymnasium. It's been viewed over 2 million times. Samuel's expression doesn't change, but Eli feels the temperature in the room drop several degrees. His grandfather's stillness carries the same quality it held in the barn when he demonstrated how to disappear, not absence, but compressed presence, waiting to explode. "Is my grandson being accused of something?" Samuel's voice could cut steel. No accusations," Henderson rushes to clarify. "But the situation has become complicated." The video clearly shows Ryan Mitchell initiating physical contact. It also shows Eli defending himself with what can only be described as exceptional skill. Henderson pulls up the video on his laptop, the screen filled with the moment that changed everything. Even viewing it for the dozenth time, the principal shakes his head in disbelief. "Where did you learn to do that?" "I taught him," Samuel says before Eli can respond. "And before you ask, yes, I had the proper certifications, military combatives instructor, certified in multiple martial arts disciplines. Everything was legal and appropriate." "That's not the issue," Henderson explains, though relief flickers across his face. The issue is what happens next. This video has attracted attention from some very unexpected places. He shows them the emails, martial arts academies requesting demonstration videos, local news stations wanting interviews, college recruiters who had never heard of Eli Turner 48 hours ago, but now see dollar signs in his unusual combination of academic excellence and combat ability. But there are darker messages too. Threats from people who see Eli's viral fame as an affront to their own worldview. Challenges from amateur fighters who want to test themselves against the quiet kid who destroyed a bully. Internet trolls who've decided that anyone who gains attention must be torn down. We've had to disable comments on the school's social media accounts, Henderson admits. Some of the messages were concerning. Eli processes this information with the same calm he brought to Ryan's attacks. Fame, he realizes, is just another form of visibility, and visibility has always been dangerous for people like him. What about Ryan? Eli asks quietly. Henderson's expression grows even more troubled. Ryan Mitchell is no longer enrolled at Crest Hill High. His parents withdrew him this morning, citing concerns for his safety and reputation. There's talk of private school, possibly out of state. The weight of consequences settles over the room like morning fog. 3 years of careful invisibility, shattered by 30 seconds of revealed truth. And now Ryan Mitchell, for all his cruelty and arrogance, has become a refugee from his own kingdom. Do you regret it? Henderson asks, his voice carrying genuine curiosity rather than judgment. Eli considers the question with the thoroughness it deserves. The viral fame brings complications he never wanted. The attention makes him vulnerable in ways Samuel's training never addressed. The knowledge that his actions have essentially exiled Ryan from his own school carries its own weight. But when he thinks of that moment in the gymnasium, the choice between continued victimhood and revealed strength, the answer comes without hesitation. No, Eli says simply. I don't regret it. By Monday morning, Crest Hill High has transformed into something resembling a movie set. News vans line the parking lot. Reporters interview students about their thoughts on the viral video phenomenon. And security guards hired by the district create a protective barrier around the main entrance. Eli's arrival generates a buzz that ripples through the crowd like electricity. Students who had never spoken to him now call his name. Underclassmen who had been invisible in their own right suddenly see him as a symbol of hope. The hierarchy that Ryan Mitchell spent years constructing lies in ruins, and something new is being built from the wreckage. But perhaps the most profound change isn't in how others see Eli. It's in how he sees himself. The boy who walks through Crest Hill High's corridors no longer hunches his shoulders or avoids eye contact. He doesn't swagger or intimidate, but he moves with the quiet confidence of someone who has nothing left to hide. His grey eyes, still magnified by thick lenses, meet the gazes of students and teachers alike without flinching. He has become, in the truest sense, visible. The question that hangs in the air, unspoken but felt by everyone, is what happens when legends walk among mortals. How does a school, a community, a world adjust to the presence of someone who has redefined their understanding of power itself? The answer will determine not just Eli's future, but the future of everyone whose life has been touched by 30 seconds of viral truth. 3 weeks after the video that changed everything, Eli Turner receives an invitation that will define the rest of his story. The letter arrives on Crest Hill High letterhead, signed by Principal Henderson and bearing the official seal of the school district. But this isn't a disciplinary notice or administrative formality. It's an offer that represents something entirely unprecedented in the school's history. The position of Self-Defense Program Coordinator, Eli reads aloud to Samuel over their morning coffee. Responsible for developing and implementing a comprehensive program to teach conflict resolution, personal safety and self-confidence to students who have experienced bullying or feel unsafe in the school environment. Samuel sets down his mug with the careful precision of someone who understands the weight of moments. They want you to teach, not fighting. Eli clarifies, scanning the letter's carefully worded description, teaching kids how to protect themselves, how to find their voice, how to... He pauses, searching for the right words. How to not be invisible anymore. The irony isn't lost on either of them. Eli Turner, who spent 3 years perfecting the art of invisibility, is being asked to help others step into the light. The program proposal emerged from conversations between Principal Henderson, the school counseling department, and a community that's still processing the implications of viral fame born from 30 seconds of revealed truth. In the weeks following the gymnasium incident, they've watched their school transform in ways both beautiful and concerning. Bullying incidents have dropped to virtually zero, not because students have suddenly discovered empathy, but because potential aggressors now worry that their targets might possess hidden capabilities. The cafeteria no longer segregates into rigid social hierarchies. Students who once ate alone now find themselves surrounded by peers eager to hear their stories, to understand their experiences. But there's a darker side to the transformation. Some students who witnessed Eli's demonstration have begun seeking confrontations, hoping to prove themselves against increasingly difficult opponents. Others have started training obsessively, turning the pursuit of strength into an unhealthy obsession with never appearing weak. The school needs guidance. They need someone who understands that true power isn't about the ability to hurt others. It's about the wisdom to know when not to. What does your gut tell you? Samuel asks, using the question he's posed whenever Eli faces difficult decisions. Eli considers the offer while watching morning sunlight stream through the kitchen windows. Outside, the world continues its daily routines, unaware that a 17-year-old boy is contemplating a choice that could ripple outward in ways impossible to predict. The viral video has opened doors he never imagined. College recruiters call daily. Martial arts academies offer scholarships. Even Hollywood agents have reached out, sensing opportunity in his combination of compelling backstory and photogenic competence. But none of those paths feel like home. I think, Eli says slowly, this is what Dad would have wanted. The program begins 2 weeks later in the same gymnasium where everything changed. But the space has been transformed. Soft mats replacing hard floors, mirrors installed along one wall, and motivational posters featuring quotes about inner strength rather than athletic achievement. Eli's first class consists of 12 students, ages ranging from freshman to senior, united only by their shared experience of feeling powerless in a world that seems designed to crush the gentle and reward the aggressive. There's Sarah Martinez, a sophomore who hasn't spoken above a whisper since her former best friend turned the entire grade against her through a calculated social media campaign. Marcus Chen, a senior whose academic excellence has made him a target for students who equate intelligence with weakness. Rachel Thompson, a junior whose visible learning disability has subjected her to years of casual cruelty disguised as humor. These are Eli's people. The invisible, the overlooked, the ones who navigate school corridors like minefields and eat lunch in bathroom stalls to avoid the exposure that comes with sitting alone in crowded spaces. I'm not here to teach you how to fight, Eli begins, his voice carrying the quiet authority he's learned from 3 years of morning training with Samuel. I'm here to teach you how to choose. The first lesson has nothing to do with physical techniques. Instead, Eli guides them through exercises in awareness, how to read body language, how to recognize the early warning signs of aggression, how to position themselves in rooms and hallways to maximize safety while maintaining dignity. Strength isn't about what you can do to other people, he explains, demonstrating proper stance and breathing techniques. It's about what you can prevent from being done to you. Sarah raises her hand tentatively. But what if they're stronger? What if there's more of them? It's the question that haunts every victim of systematic bullying, the math problem that seems to have no solution when physical disparities make traditional self-defense impossible. "Watch," Eli says, and invites Marcus to help with a demonstration. What follows isn't the devastating combat display that made him internet famous. Instead, Eli shows them something more valuable: how to use an attacker's aggression against them, how to create space and opportunity for escape, how to project confidence even when fear threatens to overwhelm. The goal isn't to win fights, he emphasizes as Marcus successfully performs a basic redirection technique. The goal is to never have to fight at all. Week by week, the transformation becomes visible. Sarah's voice grows stronger during class discussions. Marcus walks the hallways with straighter shoulders. Rachel stops apologizing for taking up space in the world. But the most profound changes happen in the conversations after formal training ends, when students share stories they've never told anyone else, when they realize they're not alone in their experiences of feeling powerless. "You know what's weird?" Sarah says during one of these post-class gatherings. "I always thought being strong meant being mean. Like Ryan Mitchell, he was strong because he could make other people feel small." Eli nods, remembering his own misconceptions about the nature of power. "My grandfather told me something once. He said there are two kinds of strength in the world, the kind that builds things up and the kind that tears things down. Most people think only the second kind matters." "Which kind are we learning?" Marcus asks. "The kind that builds," Eli replies without hesitation. "Starting with yourselves." The program's success spreads beyond Crest Hill High's walls. Other schools request information about implementing similar initiatives. Education researchers arrive to study the correlation between self-defense training and improved academic performance. Mental health professionals document the reduced anxiety and increased confidence among participating students. But for Eli, the true measure of success comes in smaller moments. When Sarah successfully diffuses a confrontation using verbal de-escalation techniques rather than retreating into silence. When Marcus helps a younger student who's being targeted by the same group that once tormented him. When Rachel laughs, really laughs, for the first time in months. 6 months after the gymnasium incident that changed everything, Eli receives another visitor to his Saturday morning training session. Ryan Mitchell stands at the edge of the converted barn, no longer the golden god of teenage hierarchy, but something rawer, more honest. "I saw the video," Ryan says, his voice carrying none of the arrogance that once defined him. "The one from the assembly where you talked about your program." Eli sets down his training weights, studying the boy who once made his life a careful navigation between humiliation and invisibility. Ryan looks different, still handsome, still physically imposing, but stripped of the cruel confidence that had been his trademark. "I wanted to apologize," Ryan continues. The words clearly difficult for someone who spent years believing apologies were admissions of weakness. "And I wanted to ask, do you think someone like me could learn what you're teaching?" The question hangs in the morning air, like smoke from an old fire. Samuel, working on equipment maintenance nearby, watches the exchange with the careful attention of someone who understands that some moments carry the weight of destiny. Eli considers his response with the same thoroughness he brings to every important decision. Ryan Mitchell represents everything that was wrong with the old system: the casual cruelty, the worship of superficial power, the belief that strength comes from making others feel weak. But he also represents the possibility of redemption, the chance for someone to choose growth over resentment, wisdom over wounded pride. "The first lesson," Eli says finally, "is learning that strength isn't about power over other people. It's about power over yourself." Ryan nods, something that might be relief flickering across his face. "When can I start?" As summer approaches and Eli's final semester at Crest Hill High draws to a close, he reflects on the strange journey that brought him to this moment. 3 years ago, He was a broken boy whose father's death had left him convinced that gentleness was a luxury the world couldn't afford. Now he's discovered that true strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice to build. The viral video that made him famous has been viewed over 50 million times, spawning countless reaction videos, analysis pieces, and philosophical discussions about the nature of power and justice. But Eli rarely watches it anymore. That moment in the gymnasium feels like something that happened to someone else, a necessary step in a transformation that was always meant to lead somewhere larger. College acceptance letters arrive weekly now, full scholarships to institutions that want to study his unique combination of academic excellence and demonstrated character. But Eli has already made his choice. He'll attend the state university 30 miles away, close enough to continue running his program at Crest Hill High while studying education and psychology. His plan is simple: learn everything he can about how people grow, how they heal, how they find the strength to choose compassion over cruelty. Then take that knowledge and use it to create programs in schools across the country, helping invisible kids find their voices and former bullies discover better ways to be strong. E essa história te tocou? Compartilhe nos comentários o que mais mexeu com você. E envie esse vídeo a alguém que precisa ouvir isso hoje. On his final morning training session before graduation, Samuel presents him with a gift: his father's championship belt, carefully preserved and finally ready to pass to hands worthy of its legacy. Your father fought for glory, Samuel says, his granite expression softened by something that might be pride. You fight for something better. He would be proud of the man you've become. Eli accepts the belt with reverence, understanding that it represents not just his father's achievements, but a responsibility to use strength in service of others. The weight of it feels perfect in his hands, substantial enough to remind him of his capabilities, light enough to never forget that true power comes from knowing when not to use it. As he walks across the graduation stage 2 weeks later, receiving his diploma to thunderous applause from an auditorium full of people whose lives he's touched, Eli Turner reflects on a truth that took him years to understand. The strongest people in the world aren't the ones who never fall down. They're the ones who fall down, get back up, and spend the rest of their lives helping others find the strength to do the same. The ghost of Crest Hill High had finally learned how to be visible, but more importantly, he'd learned how to help others step out of the shadows and into the light. And in a world that too often rewards cruelty and celebrates the wrong kind of strength, that might be the most revolutionary act of all.